Good evening and welcome to another episode of Unscripted and Unchained RPG Review. I am DM Bluddworth, and as you can see by the graphics, today's video is dungeon mastering tips and ideas that worked. And today I'm going to focus on my AD&D First Edition campaign that I've been running now for going on about a month and a half. And I'm going to focus on world building through NPCs and location details. So I wanted to take a look at some of the reference material that I had at my hands, and that of course begins with the Dungeon Master's Guide. And so once I started looking through the Dungeon Master's Guide and looking to see what I might need to use in order to make a setting or a location. In this case, it's going to be the either very large town or small city of Westburn, Yeomanry, and then just start to develop what that city is going to look like and feel like, and populate it with NPCs that the player characters are going to encounter first, and then start to develop those NPCs that will be reoccurring characters that the players would have to come into contact with more than just a few times. And that way, there starts to I would start to create that sense for my players that their characters are functioning in a real world. They're adventuring in a real world. They have a place to return to that will become familiar to them. They'll have certain NPCs that they'll go to, that they'll know by name, and it'll just start to feel like they truly exist. Just not through their adventuring experience, but now as they return back to this home base to do the various things that the Dungeon Master's Guide actually lays out as requirements. So my player party is about to return to Westburn for the first time since going on their first adventure, and many of them are actually ready to level up, which means that they will need at least a week's time that they're not adventuring so that they can do the training that's required to level up. They also have to come into contact with a trainer of their same character class, at least 4 levels above their own. So they're all going to be searching for a trainer that is at least 5th level. And they're going to have to create those relationships, as they're going on. They can't just walk into a wizard's academy, let's say, or a fighter guild and say, here I am, here's my gold, train me. So there will have to be a certain amount of connection that they make with these NPCs, and so that's what I'm looking to spend the next session on. But first, I have to go through the process of actually creating those NPCs. So I'm going to switch to a different screen here, and hopefully this view works out for you. So I started with a sheet here. And I will, let's see if I can lower this down so it becomes a little bit clearer. And I started writing down some details of Westburn Yeomanry. All right, so it is a democracy, so I know that I'm going to have to, keep that in mind when I'm creating, let's say, the magistrate, which I did. So the magistrate is actually going to be an elected official, and that really kind of changes the way that a city government will run if their officials are elected officials. Westburn is one of the 5 seats of the council for the entire country of Yeomanry, so I know that this person that sits at the top of the governmental seat in Westburn is is going to be an important individual for the nation as a whole. And I have the breakdown of what the typical alignments are. So lawful good, lawful neutral, chaotic good, and neutral good. So the NPCs of note. I wanted to create the councilman. So he is going to be the magistrate, and I had to develop a way of, well, let's see what he's actually going to be like. So I'm going to switch. I'm going to come off this screen now and go over to the Dungeon Master's Guide, and I'm going to refer you to, this is page 101. So it's all contained on pages 101 and 102. So non-player characters. So I'm scrolling along now. You might only see the small half of this, so I will expand this to larger so that you can potentially see it better there. So non-player characters persona of a non-player character. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to make adjustments based on their racial aspects. You can roll out their ability scores if you wish to, although I'm going to show you a different form that you can go to that will help you do that. But what I wanted to focus on was over here, like they go through the character classes, and I'm going to talk about that as well. And then continue on through occupations and what their effects of occupations are. But the facts table is what I'm going to look at first. So the facts table, you roll a d10 to determine their alignment. Now remember, I'm keeping in mind that most of the individuals that are encountered in Yeomanry as a whole are going to be lawful good, lawful neutral, chaotic good, or neutral good. All right, so they're pretty much going to preclude the lawful evils or the chaotic evils and such. So most are going to be in those regular categories, but I could still roll it. I rolled a d10 to determine what that person's individual personal wealth is. Their age I rolled, their general appearance, so from dirty to clean to unkept to immaculate to rough to rugged to dandyish to foppish to nondescript to imposing. I didn't bother with their sanity at this point. It just wasn't something that I was really interested in delving too much into for the purpose of of this very first construction of a small city. I went to their traits, which are the general tendencies, and the way this works, you'll see it says D12 and D6. So you roll a D6. A 1, 2, and 3 is on the 1 through 12 column, and then the 4, 5, and 6 is on the 13 through 24. So you just roll the 2 dice, and you'll start to piece those together. Then you get to a D8 and D8, and once again, it tells you here a 1 to 5 is average, a 6 to 7 is extroverted, and an 8 is introverted. And then your second D8 will determine which of these personality traits your character has. Disposition you can roll, intellect. I usually let the attribute determine that. Their nature, their honesty, their energy. You can go very, very detailed into this minutia here of, just going through all of these things. I did include interests because I thought it would be interesting to have an interest for each of the NPCs that the player characters may encounter in this next session. And I'm kind of planning on them potentially meeting as many as 30 NPCs. All right, and so it is quite a monumental task, seemingly to really flesh out even a small city or a large town. So this is something that I recommend that you do in small in small pieces. So you don't necessarily have to create 30 in one shot. Part of the reason why you have to do that is that I have 9 player characters, a maximum of 10 if everyone shows up. And so I have to at least create a trainer for each of those character classes. And there's only a couple of duplications. So, um, certainly 7 to 8 need to be created separately. So that's it for the DMG. Other than once I determine their races, and then I can do their height and weight based on male and female, and then their various races, and then height and weight determination based on their gender and their racial breakdown as well. And I haven't quite gotten into the languages portion of it, but I certainly may get involved with some of that as well. But everything on pages 101 and 102 will help you start to develop that. So let me switch views back again. And now I'm going to focus back on my sheet over here. So this is what you should be looking at. And I started creating the Councilman Orlon Demtree. All right. And I rolled him up as a human, and he was 0 level. So let me show you what I actually came up with in order to create these characters using using both the campaign section of the DMG, pages 101 to 102, the TSR Rogue Gallery, which I will show you in a few minutes. But first, I had to determine if the NPC was a classed character or and what race that they were. And so I had to create a chart. That's why you see determine if adventure classed, a house rule, see back, and the racial chart, see also the back. So let me show you what I came up with. So the first role is to determine if the NPC is a class of adventurer. And so I was going to use a D100, a result of an 01, an 11, a 22, a 33, 44, 55, 66, 77, 88, 99, or a 100 would be a specific class. So an 01, that NPC would be a former or possibly a current assassin, a bard, a cleric, a druid, a fighter, an illusionist, a magic user, a monk, a paladin, a ranger, or a thief. Now, also, I had any roll of 95 to 100. All right, so yes, that includes 99 and 100 as well. Could be of any class that I chose. All right, that leads to about 86% of the population is going to be common, all right, or a non-adventuring class, 0 level character, and 14% are adventurers. All right, and I think that's a pretty good balance of of the overall world. Is that the player characters actually will end up representing a very small segment of the population, but a very impactful one. So next I had to deal with the racial breakdown. So the racial breakdown of Yeomanry was that it was 1% half-orc, 2% gnome, about 5% elven, specifically high elf, about 76% human, 9% halfling, about 3% dwarf, and 1% half elf. So I just plotted it out on a D100, and so now I can roll to see what races each of the NPCs that I was going to create, all 30 of them, I was going to create for the player characters to encounter. Now, of course, as a DM, you can always change this up if you say, you know what, the I don't want a half orc to be the cleric of Heronius. If you know it just doesn't match in your mind for that, then you can always change that. But once I've done this and I've determined, you know, which NPCs I'm going to create and then which ones are going to be adventure classes, that's where I shift to this next document. So I'm going to bring that up here and then I'm going to switch views. So let's see what I got to do. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to bring up the Rogues Gallery. So hopefully you're seeing the Rogues Gallery now. Yes, you are. I might have to double click and go back. So here is the Rogues Gallery. So this was a supplement that was put out in 1980ish, I believe. Yeah, 1980, and it was compiled or created by Brian Bloom, David Cook, and Gene Wells. And what you do is you go to these charts. So let's say I rolled randomly and I came up with an assassin. So I'm just going to spin this around so you can see it. And I'm going to zoom in. So here we have our assassins. And once again, you're rolling a D100. And I am looking to find an assassin to put in my city of Westburn, potentially as a trainer. Which means when I roll the D100, I want to make sure that my assassin is going to be at least 5th level. So if I roll a 1 or a 2, I'm going to end up with a human, a male, neutral, evil, with these particular stats, 10th level, only 30 hit points. I would certainly modify that because that's on a low average for them. An AC of 8, which again at 10th level, they're going to have some magic items, you know, but as you can see, I can go across the board. And this is one of the ways that I can also determine whether or not an NPC is going to be male or female, because I just go with what they have here. If I came up with a half orc, certainly available on a 1% level, it's fine. Certainly there are not that many half orcs in this anyway, so it probably represents actually probably closer to 3% amongst assassins. But you might see that different if I were rolling up bards. And you can see there's only 20 potential bards here. Clerics, there are 100 different clerics, and I had to create this. I had to create at least 2 clerics for the player characters to encounter because they have 2 clerics in their group, both of different deities. So, although compatible deities, that's very important. The one thing I avoided was this 97 to 100, you know, doing multi-class, just because I didn't want to get too bogged down with doing that kind of creation process, and it just became a lot of work. I am still creating 30 NPCs. So now hopefully many of these NPCs are not going to be other than a trainer, not going to be player character class characters. So they do have a section here for 0 level, which will become very handy. And the DMG had that as well, so that you could still give them some additional traits that would be unique for them. Let's see, so 0 level characters. I gotta switch the orientation again. So sages, yes, I am going to include a couple sages along the way for the players to encounter. So 0 level characters, and this is where you can further alter some of their above average statistics. And so you would roll here randomly and see what are some of the extras that they end up. And these here are, I believe, just additional. So this might be a +1 to hit points, um, a +4 to S8, or I have to look at these and just see if I know what they all stand for. Um, but there's a lot of useful things in here, um, such as creating whole caravans and kind of getting the average across the board for some of these individuals and such. So just a really, really good resource for helping you randomize certain things. I'm going to switch back to my view here. Actually, let's come back over here. So as you can see, I mean, there's a little bit of work that you have to do in order to start preparing for these things. But once you've gotten it down, then it becomes very, very easy to just make those rolls, start jotting it down, and getting the scratch sheets down for what each of these characters are started to going to represent. And you can see, I mean, I'm putting down like the tavern keeper. He's a human. I have his name. He's a 0 level human. I have his alignment. I have his possessions. I have his age. I have his general tendency, his attitude, his personality, his interests, his height and weight, whether or not it was very tall or very heavy or below average and such, because it becomes part of the descriptions. I had to create a general store and some of its staff, a blacksmith. I'm probably going to create 3, so a blacksmith, an armor smith, and a swordsmith or a weaponsmith. The magic shop is going to be run by by an NPC that the player characters are most likely going to encounter often. Especially now, that's not a magic shop where they can go in and buy magic items. That's where they can go buy spell components and such. And maybe some very simple items, whether it be potions or single first level spells, scrolls, or or cantrip spells, or those kinds of things. Usually I keep a magic shop very, very low on the level of magic that can be just purchased with coins. There'll be a merchant's guild. There'll be a pawn shop where they can sell some of the things that they get. There's a barracks, which doubles as a fighter trainer. There's a church of Heronius. There's also a church of Farlagan. So that's where the 2 clerics can go to. There's a hunter's lodge where the rangers can go and get trained. There's a druid's enclave and grove. And I might actually place them in like an herbalist shop or an alchemist or an apothecary as well. So that might be where the player character that is a druid, where she can find where she can go to get training as well. A magician's academy for both magic users and illusionists, and herbalists, as I mentioned, which I might again combine the druid and the and the herbalist station into one, so that there's just one place that I have to develop. Now that I'm talking about the location, let's take a look at some things that I've found that might help you create a location. So the internet is a great, great resource, and I am going to switch views here. So this is the map of Westburn that I created, and this was created on the website. I actually have to bring it back over to a different view so you can see it. And let me switch here, and let me just make sure the correct one is showing. So this here is whatabout.itch.io. slash medieval fantasy city generator. If you just type a Google search, medieval fantasy city generator, you're going to come across this. All right. And here it's a very easy interface. It's completely free, although you can donate money, perhaps unlock some other features. But you can come in here and you can change any of these names if you wish. You can change the layout of the town, just by recreating it. I kind of like this map actually. So it's fairly easy to modify it. You can also export this to either a 3D paint or just regular paint and then add additional tags. Like right now, I can't change or add tags to this, but you can do that in the other programs as well. I also used the 3D paint in order to fill in and color code some of these buildings and then also add numbers to them. Then you can save it to your own file, which I've done here, and I'm guessing that you can see this. So yes, you can. So I saved it here, and so I can always just download it and bring up that city map. And I will test this out for you so you can see it. So it comes up here. And there we have it. And let me just double check to make sure you are looking at the same image. Let's get rid of this. No, you're not. See, that's the one problem with this. But that's why I anticipated it doing that. And so I'm going to switch screens here. So here you see the city that I created. And you can see that where I used the 3D paint, I was able to color code. So these are either taverns or merchants. So these yellow ones that you can see. The light blue are various trainers about the city. And, out of this view, I can actually expand, and contract on the, on the image itself. And so I can isolate these quadrants, and that way that the players can actually get a much more focused and viewed in view. I also share the document with them so they, on their own, they can actually put their own notes and such as well. So they're about to get this, probably Monday night when they get the rest of their information about the session that we're going to run. So coming back out, and I came out of that. So as you can see, I mean, there's a lot out there that you can access to make your job easier. You can be very, very detailed if you wish to. If that's the kind of thing that you really enjoy in world building is by populating an entire city. I mean, you can certainly get crazy with it, and you can go through the trouble of printing these things out and including them in your kind of like your journal for for being a DM, like a DM's journal, which I'm actually doing. So I'm keeping track of the places that they go to. I will keep on generating these maps if I know that they're going to stay in a particular area for quite some time, and just keep on building the world from a very small start off, and then just building it outwards. And throughout the player character's career or their lives, if their characters live all the way through to the end of the campaign, whatever that happens to mean for your campaign, then they will accumulate this world knowledge of all of the different places that they travel to and the different NPCs that they've encountered. And the more and more it becomes, the more live the world will feel to them. And if you start off small and slowly build outwards, you won't be over encumbered with with just having to do too much just to get the ball rolling. You can really start off small. When my group first entered into this city, they just encountered one location. they just encountered the Laughing Toad Tavern, and that's it. They met the tavern keeper, and basically that's it. They had one name. They learned of their patron's name, but they didn't actually meet him. So a very very small part of world building that I had to do for that first adventure, and at least that first session of their first adventure. And then as they moved out, I still kept it very very simple. So kept it very focused on just getting them to that dungeon and getting them started on actual adventuring. Now, when they're returning to the city of Westburn, that is where now they're going to encounter um, as many as 30 NPCs and just start really understanding how this small city actually functions, and what part they can play in interacting with it. So really looking forward to Monday night session, and still have quite a bit of work to do between now and then. But I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have, please give it a thumbs up. If you hadn't subscribed, please consider subscribing. And if you have any questions or comments about the content of this video, any tips that you have for world building, any other resources that you use for creating NPCs. Like, I didn't get into like naming NPCs, but there are plenty of internet resources where you can go in and just type in, Elven name generator, and you will get Elven name generator, pop up, and you can go in there and you could just say, male, female, and it'll give you a whole bunch of, first names, last names, or just names in general, and then you can just decide. They have it for halflings, dwarves. You probably find orcs or half orcs or whatever. There are hundreds, if not more, websites that will do various translations into fantasy languages and such, if you want to give some places that that demi-human flair to them. So if you want to name the blacksmith's shop dwarven for blacksmith, you can certainly find that on the internet and actually do that, and it'll add some flavor to the world building that you're doing, so that the players will start to really feel like they're in a different place. And that's the goal here, is to make them feel that the world is alive, the world is very much different from their own, and and they're going to start seeing the sights and sounds of the of that city that they're in, and or I should say not sounds, but the tone of the city as well, which is also important to convey upon them. So once again, thanks for joining. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I look forward to seeing you on a gaming screen sometime soon. You have a great evening, and just happy gaming out there. Take care.